Good everyone. Mazi Zoke once more speaking to us. I am back to base, as you know. Whenever one comes back to Nigeria, it feels like hell on earth. I mean, it is unbelievable how things run down in Nigeria. But be that as it may, we must endeavor and we must try to put the Igbo nation better than we met it, better than our ancestors did. Today marks it 60 days that the airport has been closed. Today as well makes it 60 days I have been on this campaign to ensure that the airport is not abandoned. Today as well marks it 40 days the contract to do the airport was awarded to PW Public Works Limited. I must however note that the PW Limited, that is Public Works Limited, was the same company that did the failed runway. Finally, today makes it 6 days after President Muhammadu Buhari approved the needed fund for the repair of the international airport, Ala-Igbo International Airport, Enugu. That's not the news. The news is, however, that yesterday, being 22nd, Tuesday, 2019, the federal government eventually came out and said that they've extended the date for the completion of the repairs work at the Ala-Igbo International Airport, Enugu. That it is no longer December 2019, that the new date is going to be April 2020. How did we know that? The Minister of Aviation appeared before the Committee on Aviation yesterday, being October, or rather, if we all recall, that the Minister of Aviation, if we recall now, when he met with the Senate Committee on Aviation, led by Senator Ala-Igbo Kogi West, that has his election nullified now, he's going to be battling it out with Smarter Adeyemi or Adeyeye, whatever that name is, of the APC. So Ala-Igbo has gone back to the trenches. Now, in that meeting where Senator Abaribe was present, the minister had said that the repair work would, by Christmas 2019, since many people will be traveling home then, and that if they had the fund, Sirika, who is the Minister of Aviation, however, the works will be completed around Easter 2020, which is usually celebrated in April. That's common sense that we do the calculations. The minister now declared that, not only that it is being moved, however, he declared state of emergency on Enugu Airport, and he said that that airport will be opened in April 2020. Now, the Minister of Aviation again, Hadi Sirika, said in that same meeting that this airport will be declared, that state of emergency in order to fix the airport. He said that he is promising that he would temporarily relocate his office to Enugu to fix until the airport is fixed before or in April 2020. He promised to directly supervise the rehabilitation of the airport to ensure that works are done according to specifications. Now, he spoke while he was defending his budget. They have budget defense, so it's sometimes an avenue for us to know what some of them that don't speak to the press, what they think or what is happening. He was defending his budget before the House on Aviation, and he said with the approval of the 10 billion for the Enugu International Airport by the President, that the contractors are expected to mobilize to site as soon as possible. Now, What is as soon as possible? In Nigerian parlance, or in Nigerian political arena, when they say as soon as possible, we do not know what timeline that we should be heading for, because we don't know. Obviously, there is no money to have that done. Now, and according to him, that since the contract, that the contractors are expected to mobilize to site as soon as possible, and that the president has already directed all agencies, I mean, in this case, the agencies could be NEMA, could be FEMA, it could be the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, that's fine, and that everything, that they should work together to ensure that the project is delivered on time. So that is yet to be seen. Now, if you recall that Sirikaf tabled a request of 10 billion before President Muhammadu Buhari for the repairs of the airport. The money got approved. He promised that the airport will be delivered before December. Suddenly, we hear it's going to be April 2020. However, the minister pleaded for more time while he was within the National Assembly. According to him, though the money requested has been approved, in his words, it's been approved, but it has not been released yet. Basically, there is no disbursement to do the job. Though he promised that President Muhammad Buhari had approved the 10 million needed for the rehabilitation of the airport. That we know. He further disclosed that the rehabilitation work on the Enugu airport will be done in such a way that the airport will be the best in the country, adding that all houses and structures, located in Emene around the airport may have to give way to increase safety. Recall that the Enugu state government under Ugwuanyi has already removed the radio mast and the Oyemene, the abattoir at Oyemene, that's where vultures normally converge and they pose serious threat to flights. That has been done, and he basically went further to say that the governor, Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi, has given assurances that he will provide support for the rehabilitation of the airport, and also asked lawmakers to always visit the airports to assess the progress of work. And here I will say, Mazezoke, it is not only the lawmakers that will come to the airport to see what is happening. I am saying that Mazezoke will always, from time to time, visit the airport, take pictures. As long as they're not going to come after me, I would do that in order to ensure that the work is, progressing as as they promised, the people. So it's not something that we should only leave in the hands of the politicians to do, because after all, for so many things happening before, they haven't lived up to expectations. So why should we? Now, there are some clear pointers here, and that is very instructive. And these pointers, and this is where my campaign, or rather the campaign we are running on this, will have to center. Because by these announcements, the campaign, in as much as some of you who have sent me private messages yesterday, or rather some of you in some of the groups that have made comments this morning, Mazi, this thing is moved to April 2022, so what you're doing is no longer needed. And I said, no, hell no. Some of you don't know me. I don't give up whenever I start something that I believe in. My promise, and I'm still keeping my promise. I don't care if the reconstruction of the airport is moved to December 2020. I will. That's a promise to the Minister of Aviation. Every single day, as long as there is life, as long as I wake up in sound health, every single day I will send you a tweet, remind you the following pointers. Point 1, that you, Minister, you said you're going to temporarily relocate your office to Enugu to see that the airport is fixed before April 2020. That you, Minister, you promised to personally supervise the airport to ensure that it is done on time and on budget. And that you, Minister, also said, not my words, these are yours, that the Enugu airport will be done in such a way that the airport will be the best in Nigeria. You know why I'm laughing saying this? It's good to have ideas, and I trust no one, especially none of the politicians. But for the benefit of doubt, we will see. We'll keep, we'll compare notes. We have pictures, at least myself, I have pictures of how Enugu interior, secret recordings, how the interior of Enugu airport is, how the runway was, and by April, I promise my viewers I will be live on ground. Mr. Minister, I challenge you, invite me to the groundbreaking. I would come and I would give account of what's been done. In this case, this is what you said, that the airport, Enugu airport, will be among the best in Nigeria. It is a challenge, and I will remind you this every single day until April 2020. That is a promise. Now, the last pointer here, because there are 4 pointers, that Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi has given assurances that he will provide all needed support. That is good and that is fantastic. So every single pointer here, we will be holding you guys to account. Now, I have done more investigations on the Enugu airport, and thanks to former Aviation Minister Chidoka for providing some of the information when he responded to a WhatsApp message stating that Igbos did not build the Enugu airport when they were in charge. And, I kind of said, that's good. Someone that was, a stakeholder is now talking and is now providing some of the information that we've been seeking to understand. And these informations are as follows. Enugu runway expansion was awarded in 2009 under the Minister of Aviation, Omotoba. That contract was 4.13 billion. That's the original project design, which I have showed in my previous video during the time of Yaradua before he fell ill and eventually died in 2010. That was when he appointed Omotoba, and the controversies ranging that Enugu was not an international airport, whether he approved it or he didn't, but eventually that, got cut down. Then the original project design and cost was above 10 billion, but when it went for due process, now this is according to Chidoka, the due process certificate, it was turned down as there was no funding source for the 15% advance payment that ought to be done. So when we say that Igbos or that this was aviation minister, what it means, it appears they were aviation ministers on paper. Now, another pointer is that to avoid abandonment, Senator Ike Ekweremadu, gathered Igbo legislators who all contributed their constituency project, and that is true. I read articles in this regard, which the total contribution was still below the 15% needed for the original cost of 4 billion. So it was redesigned. Now it's beginning to make sense, because when I look at the design, and I've said it, I'm right. Because when I begin to look at the design and now ask who designed this crappy something that it's not what a motor park, not to talk of bus terminal. So it was redesigned to 4 billion to pass through BPP, to pass through the budgetary provisions. Now, eventually, it was Enugu legislators that bore the brunt of contribution of the constituency project funds, and the project took off and captured in the following year as as an ongoing project through the leadership of Ike Ekweremadu. So why we have to say these things and push them out is, I promise us, the more I get information here, I spare no one. The more these informations are being dished out in order to enlighten us. So if anyone is doing anything, like Ike Ekweremadu, what Chidoka is now, saying that he did, these are things that some people didn't know before. Now, there are links to it. I'll put these links also in this video so you can read the newspaper publications, where these informations where these informations were gathered from. So it's not something that we just yank off the air in order to feed the public. We feed public verifiable information. I have no interest. My interest to see the Igbo nation thrive. Now, eventually enters Mrs. Njeze, which I've told us before. He took over from Amotoba. As Minister of Aviation, the contract was revised and reviewed. Now, that is where the variation that I've been talking about comes in again, to 10 billion from 4.13 billion to enable expansion and extension of the runway. Issues of compensation, encroachment, blah, 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 arose. If you guys remember, that's actually bringing me back now. There was a time, there was this discussion of encroaching the Nigerian Navy property, blah, 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 So it is now beginning to make sense to me that that issue arose then, and that really frustrated further the extension, but original contract was concluded with its inherent structural issues. Now, there is another pointer. The issue of reducing the cost in 2009 meant Enugu high water level that blocks road construction around the eastern region was not tackled before the asphalt overlaying, leading to the failure of the runway. Further works could not proceed as the runway needed to be replaced. So, because of the delays, one, in the funds, and other inherent issues, so the airport eventually got into trouble, because we can't just abandon a project for so long without, while you are dealing with issue of encroachment, people going to court, people blocking you from not doing your job. It sounded so silly, but these things are real. So the officials knew what was to be done. We wanted to commence it at the after the election, but it was according to Chidoka, it requires having the full funding in place, as the airport would have been shut down again. Okay, so suddenly again Stella Odua, that was during the suddenly again in 2011 Stella Odua took the saddle. No, that was 2010. Later 2010, Stella Odua took the saddle as minister and saw the upgrade of the terminal buildings and fought like a lioness to build a brand new terminal. Remember, before was the rehabilitation of the old terminal. If you come into Enugu, the terminal on your right is the old terminal. You see the uncompleted terminal, which was started by Stella Odua on your left. That was the one started by Stella Odua. Now, Stella took Chinese loan to build a brand new airport from the budgetary allocations after the Chinese loan could not cover Enugu. If you remember, I had in one of my videos said we took loans for this, but from explanation of Chidoka, what it means that the Chinese loan could only cover Lagos, Port Harcourt, Kano, and which one again? And Abuja. These were funded from the loan initiated by Stella Odua. Now, the question that is, now we borrowed this money. We did these 4 airports. Yes, none of these funds were, we couldn't use any of them to do Enugu. The point now is, Enugu is scheduled to be opened in April 2020. People, I want you to join me in this battle. No retreat, no surrender. We are not going to. Some of you, you tweeted or you retweeted my tweets. Some of you dropped the ball. Hey, you may have never seen a campaign like this. Try me. As long as there is life, I promise us one thing. I, Mazi Ezeoke, will, until Enugu International Airport is recommissioned, until flights, international flights, local flights, begin to land in Enugu, I will not give up. We have to hold them to account of the 4 pointers I mentioned. Lastly, also that there must be night landing facilities. All the international airports in Port Harcourt, Kaduna, Lagos, and Abuja all have night landing facilities. So if the minister is saying Enugu is going to be more, is going to be better than all this, meaning Enugu must also have night landing facilities. Only then shall we say that Enugu is truly an international airport. Once more, this is Mazi Ezeoke. Remain blessed. Follow me on Twitter at Mazi Ezeoke, and we must keep demanding. Now, from now on, it appears to be a long time, but it's only 6 months. 6 months. Today makes it 2 months. I've done this campaign for 2 months, and I'm not going to stop until Enugu Airport